Good morning, everyone, and we are back in Exodus, and today we will try to do 10 and 11. We are at 10, and very quickly, I think you will be able to see the pattern of what God is doing with Pharaoh and with regards to Egypt. Some of you may be wondering, how is it that God can't just do one miracle and no, it's all over? And it's very much a vivid show. Now, if you are reading from the book of Exodus, you are seeing it unfolding. But for us today, we are looking backwards. And as we are looking backwards, you will see all across the Bible that God is showing them an incredible picture lessons, a series of 10 great miracles, and to taunt Pharaoh and to show Pharaoh who the true God is. And why 10? And 10 is a complete number, basically. But in these 10, God never did all these again, so that in chapter 12, we will then remember everything that was done, and it is supposed to be taught to everybody else thereafter. Now, this is important for us to understand that God is taking his time to show Pharaoh who he is, number one, and in so doing, hardening his heart. But the second point will come to be more clear when we exit Egypt, and the Exodus itself will become a reminder, and we will see that in chapter 12. So now in chapter 10, God says to Moses, go into Pharaoh. Again, all this go in means go into the palace. For I have hardened. The word hardened here is in the Hefil. It means cause him to be stubborn. Okay. The word hardened by itself is stubborn. And I have hardened means God has caused him to be stubborn, which means that through all the miracles that's happened, it is not just visual for them to see. Initially, it was visual. Remember, you throw the rod on the ground, it became a snake. And then eventually, it started to affect lives. And in the previous chapter of chapter 9, it ended when there was a lot of destruction of animals, livestock, as well as the plantation, the agriculture. And that in itself is important for us to see that they have been impacted in their lives. Now, one slight correction I wanted to point out was because somebody pointed out to me about last week's class, that there was fire from the sky when the hailstones came. It was a situation of a storm. And in so doing, although the word is fire from the sky, I agree with the person that this literally means the hailstones coming down as ice stones came down with lightning. So visually, when we look up and it is like light strike down to the ground, it's like fire came down from heaven. That would be a very good way of understanding it. So now, coming into chapter 10, God says Pharaoh's heart is still hardened. He's still stubborn. But not only his heart, but the hearts of the servants. Now, the servants would mean that his generals, the people who are around him, who listen to him so that they can carry out orders. Now, every time you see the word servant, don't think they are slaves. This word here, when you say servants, it is the same word as slaves, but it literally means one who takes instruction from the master. And so Pharaoh is the master, and these are his generals, and the generals will execute his instructions. And so now God says, I may show these signs of mine before him. And every time before him means in front of his eyes. Okay. that you may tell. Now, this is the one I want to highlight with a different color. The purpose of God doing all this is that you may tell in the hearing of your son and your son's son the mighty things that I've done in Egypt and my signs which I have done among them, that you may know that I am the Lord. Now, this I think would be the summary of why God did all the miracles. That he didn't do one miracle, he did a series of them, and it has life-changing and life-impacting consequences. And to the Egyptians, these are evil. It is a calamity, it's disastrous. And so God wants Moses to tell the people that the children of Israel may continue to talk about it. Now, this word tell is to recount. Recount. Recount means well, the Chinese word is 数算, that you count your blessings. That word count, it is a recount so that you can say the first miracle, the second miracle, the third miracle, the fourth miracle, the fifth miracle. That is counting, right? And so you are to recount in the hearing of your son and your son's son through the generations. And so this idea of tell is not quite correct. Recount would mean that you have to keep telling them one by one, miracle 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, of everything that God has done in Egypt. These are the miracles. And they are to remember what God has done. Now, God never did this again. God didn't do another 10 miracles elsewhere. Even though they were in Babylon, God did not release them from there. But here in the book of Exodus, this is the one time that is so detailed out for us, and that even for ourselves looking back, you can literally see the power of God upon the Egyptians. And the purpose of documenting this is so that we now can even talk about it. So the Jews will talk about it, okay? And the purpose is this: know God. Miracles is not meant for a show of power. It is to strike fear in the hearts of Pharaoh so that he will know who God is. Whether he accepts him as God or not is irrelevant, but he can certainly see. And so can the servants. And so Moses and Aaron, why Moses and Aaron? Remember, Moses is like an Elohim to Aaron, and Aaron is like a prophet to Pharaoh. Will speak on behalf of Moses, and whatever Moses tells Aaron is what God tells Moses. So they came into the palace to Pharaoh and says, "Thus says the Lord God of the Hebrews, how long will you refuse to humble yourself?" Now, this is a very interesting word. And the intent here is to the effect. Actually, what God was doing is to humble Pharaoh. But in effect, he was hardened. Now, in the hardening of heart, can he humble himself? Yes, he can. But he refused to. Though his heart is hardened, though his heart is stubborn, he can still humble himself. That is the interesting thing, right? Many of us think that, when you're stubborn, you cannot humble. No. When you are stubborn, you can also be forced to humble. The only reason that Pharaoh is refusing to humble himself is that he is refusing. Refuse means to reject, right? To completely reject God. Say, I don't care. Even though I may see all these things and God is real, I refuse to humble myself before him. So humbling himself and hardening himself are two very separate things. And so God says, let my people go. And remember what this means, right? Let my people go. Send them away. Why? Why does God want Pharaoh to send them away? To serve. To serve means to work. To do work for God. Now, in this case, to do work for God, eventually we see that it is really to make offerings, right? To make offerings. And God will want certain things done. Moses doesn't know what, but when the time comes, they will be told that when you get out there, I will tell you what to do. Verse 4, or else if you refuse to send my people away, behold, tomorrow. And so now this is a threat. And one of the things that you can see is that Moses always goes in to tell them, no, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, God is going to do this, So there's always warning. So the style of God is not to whack, but the style of God is to give chance for repentance, to humble himself. But of course, we read that Pharaoh refused to, but God continues to be faithful to his character. I warn you first, tomorrow I will bring locusts into your territory. They shall cover the face of the land, not the earth, right? The land. So that no one will be able to see the land. And they means the locusts will eat the residue of what is left, which remains to you from the hail, and they shall eat every tree that grows up for you out of the field. What does that mean? It means that, you remember in chapter 9, where the hailstones came and destroyed the crops and the animals with the lightning coming down that is seen as fire? Well, the remainder of it will be all eaten up by the locusts. That is the threat, that if he does not humble himself before God. And the warning carries on and says, the locusts will fill your house. Fill means fill up your houses, the houses of all your servants and the houses of all the Egyptians. Now, understand there is a separation of two groups of people. Your servants would be the generals, all the Egyptians with the rest of the people, right? Which neither your fathers nor your fathers' fathers have seen, meaning it has never ever happened before in Egypt when they were walking on the land until today. And he turned and went out from Pharaoh. Verse 7, Pharaoh's servants, his generals, said to him, how long shall this man be a snare to us? Now, what does snare mean? Snare literally means a bait, a lure, to trap them. So they think that all these things that Moses is saying is to trap them, to trip them, to make them fall. So the Pharaoh servant says, let the men go. And notice when he says the men, verse 7, this word means literally the male gender. Let the men only go, that they may serve or do work to the Lord their God. Do you not yet know that Egypt is destroyed? And that is how far Pharaoh tolerated. Now that with the hail destroying most of the crops and animals, God has said that tomorrow the locusts will come, and the generals is now advising the Pharaoh, just let the men go. So verse 8, Moses and Aaron were brought again to Pharaoh in the palace, and he said to them, okay, you go and do work to the Lord your God. So who are going? Now notice what Moses said. And Moses said, we will go with our young, our old, our sons, our daughters, our flocks, our herds. All we go and we will hold a feast to the Lord, where they will gather together. A feast means a gathering together in the name of God, for God, and to meet God as an appointment. And that is what Moses has said. Okay, notice. What does he mean? Our young, our old, our sons, our daughters, our flocks, our herds. Young and old, you know, right? The young kids and the old men. Our sons and daughters are the ones that can do things, right? Our flocks means the ones, the small animals, four-legged. Our herds are the four-legged, bigger animals, so the cattle. And then basically what he's saying, every one of us is leaving. and that is what shocked Pharaoh. Verse 10. Pharaoh said to them, "The Lord better be with you when I let you and your little ones go. Beware, for evil is ahead of you." Now, what does it mean? That Pharaoh in turn says, if I let you go, be careful. That the evil is ahead of you. Once you leave, I will come after you. That is what he said. He has already thought of it. That if you go and you don't come back, I am going to come and kill you all. And that is what he means by the evil. The evil that is not right for the Israelites, the Pharaoh will do. Not so. I don't think so. This is not what I will do. You can go, you, the men. Remember, that was the advice of the generals. You go, your men, the males go and serve the Lord and do what you desire. And they were driven out from Pharaoh's presence. So Pharaoh decided that the men go. Why just the men? Pharaoh is not stupid, right? If the men go and the women and children and the old and everything else is in Egypt, what will happen is the men will come back. But if everybody leaves, well, nobody will come back. That's basically what he knows. Now, because of that, God says to Moses, stretch out your hand. And this literally means Moses will hold his hand out over the land of Egypt for the locusts, that they may come upon the land of Egypt, eat every herb, every green thing of the land, all that the hail has left, the remaining things, God will also destroy. And so Moses stretched out his hand, brought an east wind. Remember what an east wind, the wind that blows from the east. The wind that blows from the east with regards to Egypt now will be the wind that is blowing from Sinai, which is the wilderness. On the land that day and all night. And when it was morning, the east wind brought the locusts, and the locusts went up all over the land, rested on all the territory of Egypt. By this, you can see that it excludes Goshen, because Goshen is the territory of Israel. Previously, there had been no such locust. Even if there was a locust here and there, nothing like this. And nor shall there be such after them. Meaning, this is going to happen once, and it happens once in such an incredible number, and it won't happen again. Verse 15. For they covered the face of the whole land, so that the land was darkened. Meaning, when the locust, locust is dark green, brownish, and once you have millions of them lying around, well, it is like dark. You can't see anything else anymore except the locusts. And they ate every herb of the land, all the fruit of the trees which the hail had left. So there remained nothing green on the trees or the plants in the field throughout all the land of Egypt. This really threatened life. Nothing to eat is really bad. And Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron in haste. Verse 16 says, in haste. What do you mean in haste? In haste means he was very anxious. not only anxious, in a hurry. In our Malaysian context, tak boleh tahan lagi, right? So just bring them here. That's the imagery, right? That you will see from Pharaoh, and said, I have sinned against the Lord your God and against you. What do you mean sinned? Sin means here is khatat. That means that he missed. What do you mean miss? Now this is what we mean, right? Khatat. Though the word sin means miss, then this is the target. Okay. And Pharaoh is supposed to shoot at the target. But instead of the target, Pharaoh decided to do something else. He shot at another target. And so in the Hebrew word miss, this is miss. How much has he missed? He missed the target. Means that he did not do what he was told to do by God. And he said, I have sinned against you, your God, and I've sinned against you. Means whatever you told me that your God told you to tell me, I completely missed that. That is what sin, that is the word translated sin, actually means. So now, therefore, please forgive my sin only this once. Now, you notice that he has said it before, right? And so in verse 17, the word here is to lift up. Lift up my sin. So that this sin has become a burden to him. So the word really doesn't mean pardon my sin, right? The word literally means to lift up my sin. Only this one. And entreat the Lord your God. Entreat means to intercede. To pray for me to your God, right? That he may take away from me this death only. And the word take away is to turn away. Turn away from me only this death. What is this death? The locust. The locust is going to kill them. Not literally killing them, but killing all the food that they don't eat, and then they would die. And so he says, forgive my sin, lift up my sin, lift up this burden, and intercede. The Lord means the name of God, Jehovah, your God, not his God, your God, Moses' God, that he may take away or turn away the locusts. That is what it means. So he went out from Pharaoh and entreated the Lord, prayed to God. And the Lord turned a very strong west wind. Now notice, it was the east wind that brought the locusts. Now the west wind will blow from Ethiopia, the west of Egypt, Ethiopia, Libya, the northern part of Africa. It will blow towards Egypt. And then they took the locusts away and blew them into the Red Sea. And this would be the Suez, the Gulf of Suez. Okay, the Gulf of Suez. There remained not one locust in all the territory of Egypt. So as fast as the east wind brought it, the west wind brought it away. So literally God took away or take away or turn away by turning the wind from east to west to blow from west to east. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he did not let the children of Israel go. And by this, harden means to cause him to be stubborn. That after God said, turn away the locust, he didn't feel the threat anymore. I don't need to let the people go. I don't need to listen to your God. And that's how he felt. Right? That's how he felt. Verse 21. Then the Lord God said to Moses, okay, stretch out your hand toward the heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, darkness which they may even be felt. Now, this is something which a lot of people have missed. Now, the word darkness is choshek. And you see this word darkness in Genesis 1 verse 2. And darkness was over the surface of the water. Choshek, right? Choshek is not just lack of light. Choshek actually means darkness that is caused by the presence of clouds or the presence of fog or that kind of thing, right? So when the fog comes in, it is dark because it blocks out the light. So understand this. Darkness which may be even be felt is the darkness that is the darkness of darkness. This means the darkness of darkness. And the darkness of darkness is so dark that you can feel. How can you feel darkness? Now, in the ancient days, darkness is not because you didn't turn on the light. Darkness is because something is covering the light. And so in this case, it will be thick fog, thick mist, thick something that you can actually feel. And you can actually feel fog. Why? If you go to Genting Highlands when the day where the clouds are rolling by, you can literally touch it. And because it feels like there's something there, though it's not hard, it's just that you know that something brushed against you. So that is what it means, that the darkness of darkness, the darkness which may be felt, is like a thick fog and you can't see anything anymore. And when the fog is so thick, you cannot see the darkness. You can't even see your hand. And that is what darkness is described in this case. So Moses stretched toward the heaven. There was a thick darkness. How can you talk about darkness that is thick? Because it is fog. It is that kind of a concept. It is not turn off the light. God didn't turn off the sun. It is God is blocking the sun. And this thick darkness is what they can feel, is all over the land of Egypt for 3 days. They did not see one another. You see, it's so thick, they can't even see their own hand actually. And they did not rise from his place for 3 days. But all the children of Israel had light in their dwellings. Meaning, this did not go to the land of Goshen. So they can see, it's all normal for them. Verse 24, Pharaoh called to Moses, saying, go serve the Lord. Only let your flocks and your herds be kept back. Well, in the first place, he said, only your men go. Now he concede a little bit. You take your flocks and herds, but your little, and also your little ones go with you. But what happened to the women? Well, if the women don't go, the men will always come back. Right? The men will always come back. But Moses said, you must also give us sacrifices and burnt offerings. What are these in verse 25? Sacrifice. Sacrifice always means a slaughter. If you have to slaughter, you must have something to slaughter. A burnt offering is to burn an animal. And so you need the animals, right? How can you keep the flocks back? So it has no meaning. That's what Moses is saying, that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God. Our livestock shall go with us. Not a hoof shall be left behind. Everything. For we must take some of them to serve the Lord our God. Now notice this. Take some of them. And he doesn't know which yet. To serve. And here, serve means to do work. And to do work is to make offering, right? to God. And even we do not know what we must serve until we arrive there. What are you to offer? You won't know until God tells you. Verse 27. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, caused him to be stubborn, and he would not let them go. Then Pharaoh said to him, "Get lost. Be careful yourself that you will no longer see my face." So I would put it here, get lost in our today's term, that you will not see me anymore. And Pharaoh was so adamant that in the day you see my face, you shall die. And Pharaoh just had it. So Moses said, "You have spoken well. I will never see your face again." And this is important. This will happen. But how will it happen is chapter 11. And that is where we are going now. We go into chapter 11. And the Lord said to Moses, "I will bring one more strike." Okay, one more strike. I think the word strike actually gives a better picture because it's like God beating on Pharaoh. And that's what a plague is. It's a strike. It's to beat someone up. And God is using these natural things to do that on Pharaoh and on Egypt. So notice, the plague is on Pharaoh as the king of Egypt, as the God or the Elohim of Egypt, and he represents Egypt. So when you hit on the Pharaoh, you are hitting on the nation. And of course, it flows to the nation. After this, he will let you go from here. Well, in chapter 11, he says, and after this, not that he will let you go, he will send you away. So always remember, let you go means to send you away from here. When he sends you away, he will drive you out of here altogether. Now, this is quite interesting. Drive out. This is drive out. Drive out means to kick you out, right? To divorce you. Maybe that's a good word if we understand it. To have nothing more to do with you, right? It is a more intense form of cast out. I cut you out altogether. I don't want to have anything to do with you. Speak now in the hearing of the people, and let every man ask from his neighbor, every woman from her neighbor. Look at what is being asked. Articles of silver and articles of gold. And God allowed it to happen. The Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. Again, let me explain this. The word favor is grace. And grace is always in the eyes. So the Egyptians looks at the Israelites and see grace, see favor. And so once Israel has favor in the eyes of the Egyptians, then what is going to happen? What you want, the Egyptians will give. And moreover, the man Moses was very great in the land of Egypt. What do you mean very great? He was seen to be very powerful. Why? Because he represents God. Everything he has said has happened in the eyes of the Pharaoh. See, everything is in the eyes. Greatness is also in the eyes of the Pharaoh servant. Favor is in the eyes of the Egyptians. See, they are seeing everything, right? In the sight of the people. That means in the eyes of the people. You see, in the ancient way, the biblical way of expressing fear, anger, grace, favor, greatness is always seen in the eyes. And the eyes is used as a very powerful entry point. Because if the eyes don't see it, the heart will never reflect. The choices that you make is not reflected. And so if there is anything to be understood from today's lesson, it is that things must be seen from the eyes of the beholder. So when the Egyptians see favor on the Israelites, they will give. And when the Pharaoh servants and the people see greatness of power in Moses, they will be afraid. Okay, that's what it means. Verse 4 onwards, Moses said, "Thus says the Lord," and that is what they must understand. About midnight, and that is an interesting phrase. This word midnight is, how should we say? This is about the middle of the night. Okay, middle of the night. And the middle of the night is a very interesting expression. And so let me explain to you. The day is from sunset to sunset. And this sunset begins, and then after that, it grows dark, and then it grows bright. Okay? And we call this morning and evening. Okay, this is in Genesis chapter 1. And this is 12 hours in our count, and this is another 12 hours. The middle of this 12 hours would be our midnight. And so we call midnight at 12 or 00 or 12 a.m. It's a very interesting fact because this is literally the Bible's middle of the night. It is not our middle of the night. Our middle of the night in the Western view would be maybe around 2, 3 o'clock, where we are deep asleep, so we call it middle of the night. But in the Bible, the middle of the night literally is around midnight. And so it is correct when it's translated midnight, except that we don't understand why. So I'm just trying to explain to you what that actually means from a biblical viewpoint. Okay? So let's continue. I will go out into the middle of Egypt, in the middle of where the Egyptians live. And all the firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die. Now, first of all, let us understand this word. The firstborn, and the word is Bakor. Bakor means the chief, right? It means the chief. It means the eldest. And it means the firstborn. And so the word firstborn has the concept that he has a very important role, whether it's an animal and whether it's a child. The firstborn has special interests, I would say, special place in the family. Now, unfortunately, it does not apply to the firstborn of a female. It applies to the firstborn of a male. And so it would be very similar to the Oriental Chinese family, as in the Egyptian family, as in the Hebrew family. The firstborn has a special place, and it's usually a male. And God says that he will die. From the firstborn of Pharaoh who sits on the throne, even to the firstborn of the female servant who is behind the handmill. So in this case, the firstborn, although in terms of special honor is given to the male, in this case, when God says all firstborn shall die, actually, God only refers to if you are born the first. all the firstborn that are males, human or animal, the firstborn of the animals, only the firstborn, which are all males, all will die. And then there shall be a great cry. The great cry literally means a shriek. A shriek is, how do you spell shriek? R-R-I-E-K. That you just cry out, and it's unbelief. It's in desperation, it's in despair, and everybody is crying. Why is the firstborn dead? That would be the effect throughout all the land of Egypt. As such, was not like it before, or it won't happen again. So, like what has happened to the locusts, to the darkness, and now to the firstborn dying, it will not happen again. But against none of the children of Israel shall a dog move its tongue against man or beast, that you may know that the Lord does make a difference between the Egyptians and Israel. And this is to tell them, well, God's hand on the firstborn will be on the Egyptians, from Pharaoh to the female servants to all the animals. But the children of Israel will not see this happen, not even to a dog, a man, a beast. And this is what is going to make the difference between the Egyptians and the Israelites. And all these your servants shall come down to me and bow down to me, saying, get out. Now, what does this mean? That all your servants shall come down to me. This word in verse 8, he will descend. He will march down. And this means that he will go downwards. And this will be to Goshen. The place where the pharaohs is a higher plane than Goshen. And then it says that they will come and then they will bow down. Bow down is shachak, right? Shachak is all the way to the ground. And this is a sign of humility, that to humble themselves, saying, get out, get lost, all the people follow you, that I will go out. And God says he will do that. And notice, this is the case where Moses will never see Pharaoh's face again. And it is a case where Pharaoh will send his servants to tell them this message. Then he went out from Pharaoh in great anger. This is what Moses is telling Pharaoh. This is what's going to happen. And the Lord said to Moses, Pharaoh will not heed you. He will not listen, so that my wonders may be multiplied in the land of Egypt. What is so interesting is this, that even by doing this, Pharaoh will not listen to you, and the wonders will be multiplied and will be added on. There'll be another strike. And so Moses and Aaron did all these wonders before Pharaoh, and the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he did not let the children of Israel go. So all these have happened right to the point of the darkness that can be felt. And the last one will be the firstborn. And the firstborn hasn't been executed yet. So up to this point in time, Pharaoh will not listen. But soon, something will change. Right? Soon, something will change. And that one will come in the next chapter. So what I have tried to do is to cover it before the next chapter, so that we will then spend some time on the next chapter, because it's quite long. But it is very pivotal. It's a milestone chapter of the book of Exodus. And so I want to spend some time on that the next lesson. So we will end here for chapters 10 and 11. Any questions?
Pastor, the animals also firstborn will be the male animals, is it?
Whenever the Bible speaks of firstborn, it speaks very much of males, the male gender, whether it is animal or humans. And so it will refer to the firstborn son in that sense.
And the servants' children also will be male and female.
They are sons, obviously.
What about the Egyptians?
No, the Egyptians are. The servants are the Egyptians, are the generals of the Pharaoh.
What I meant, not servants, but the Egyptians themselves.
Yeah, all right across the land. The principle is firstborn, man or animal, doesn't matter.
So all firstborns, including the female.
Only the males.
And how long actually from the first plague to the last plague? Because Malaysia, you see the whole world today with one plague also, we are all suffering. So
Yes.
if they have got about 10 plagues, how long actually is
I think this took, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I will stand corrected. I believe it took over a year. It is a period of the year.
And that means no crops and nothing already.
So at this point in time, like in chapter 9, we read about the crops, right? Those crops were starting to be harvested. And then the hail came. And then the locusts came and eat the balance up. So it started very early in the year and it went through to the end of the year, to the time of harvest. So it's within the whole year. It's not an overnight thing.
Plague after plague. So that means the food also will get dried up now.
Yes. So as you noticed, when the plague came, right, the last few plagues are disastrous plagues. Not just irritating them, but they stand to kill them. And that was what forced their hand. The 10th plague of the firstborn death is the one that broke the camel's back. Okay.
Pastor, I just want
Yes.
to, I'm still a bit confused on this, that the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, but yet wanted him to be humble. So how to, I still could not really reconcile. Is it that God permit his heart to be hardened, or really God hardened his heart that he became stubborn?
Let me step back and give you the gist of it. The word harden means to be stubborn. Okay, to be stubborn. Then we read the Lord hardened his heart. Okay, means cause him to be stubborn. And then I have mentioned to you that this is not God zapping his heart and then he becomes stubborn. So what essentially has happened is that God told him, I'm going to do this if you don't send my people away. And then God did it and he felt it, he saw it, and it was like a slap to him. So each time God did a plague, it made him more stubborn. So the plague itself made the Pharaoh stubborn. Right? B-O-R-N. So the plague is done by God. The effect of the plague on the Pharaoh is to make him stubborn. Now, being stubborn, hardened of heart, doesn't mean you cannot humble yourself. Now, of course, it's harder to be humble. It's like after being slapped, you have to say, I'm sorry. That is actually hard. And for Pharaoh to do that is like close to impossible. But not not impossible, cannot. So he refused to do that. And the more plagues he see, the harder his heart was, because he just cannot tahan. God is so real. The God of the Hebrews is so real. And after being slapped 9 times, he is still stubborn and he refused to be humble. So humble is a choice that he will not want to make. So that is the contrast. So what I was trying to show you is that hardened is one thing, humble is another thing. The two things are very different.
So does that mean that we should not read this literally, lah? That when they say that the Lord hardened is the
Actually,
plague.
the English does not represent it clearly, lor.
Oh, you mean original text is not really worded
Yeah.
in such? I see.
Yeah, so this is the Hebrew.
Okay.
And so when you say the Lord hardened, to us in our modern days, like God did something to his heart. So the way that God hardened him was to show him the plague. See, I told you I'm going to do that. And I did it. Now you can feel it, you can see it. And then Pharaoh said, I don't care. That is the flow of things.
Okay, thanks, Pastor.
Okay, right.
Yeah, understand.
It is important. Thanks for asking. That one is, once you're clear, then you understand how the relationship is. Okay. I'll see you next week then. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you, Pastor.
Bye.